On a beautiful afternoon in Boulder, Colorado at Avery Brewing Company, several of the top craft beer minds gather to discuss what pairings will be included for the Calibration Dinner at the Big Beers, Belgians and Barleywines Festival.
I always like a welcome beer, like a social beer, because it seems like everyone's there to drink beer, and then they're like, wait, I gotta go sit for 30 minutes before I get a drop of beer?
Walk in the door, they're like,
Right. So I think it's nice to have a welcome beer, a little social. This can definitely do that.
Yeah, and if we want a welcome beer from each brewery, we have plenty of welcome beers that we could easily throw on there. We didn't bring them for this because we probably brought too many samples already. There was one year where we tasted like 15 things and it was like, okay, no one can remember anything. We're all drunk. This is ineffective. Or inefficient. So we tried to actually like pick and choose a little bit this year and only bring like 9.
I started out in the tap room, and I heard these awesome stories of big beers. It seems super like mystical and just one of these things that, it was like Great American Beer Festival. It was one of those festivals you had to go to. I believe the Calibration Dinner started in 2005. Laura Lodge, the creator of Big Beers, can definitely fact check me. But it started out as like a dinner with Adam Avery and Sam Calagione from Dogfish Head. And it slowly moved into a calibration dinner where you calibrated your palate for intense flavors, big boozy beers, and just a good time. Because when Adam and Sam get together, you don't know what you're gonna get yourself into. So the calibration dinner is kind of like it's the starting off. It's the beginning of the race, if you were, for the several days of big beers. I think our friends from Dogfish Head, Dylan, I think he brought 7 or 8 beers, and Avery kind of toned it down and only brought around 10 to the initial tasting. So what we do with these tasting for this, to see how this calibration dinner works, we pick a bunch of just crazy beers and then tone it down, see what works well with each other. So I think we started out with about 16 to 18 beers this year. Normally it's around like 30. The calibration tasting with Dogfish Head and the chefs normally take 4 or 5 hours, and everybody has to call an Uber or Lyft home afterwards. Luckily this year we got it down to under 2 hours, which is a world record. It's going to be 12 beers altogether. And ironically enough, the last beer is going to be the lowest ABV beer. The first beer is going to be some of the most potent, high ABV stuff. So it's really cool.
So Palo Santo, it's a giant 12% alcohol unfiltered brown ale. A ton of sort of dark roasty chocolate malts and things of that nature go into this beer to give it that sort of deep, sort of dark chocolate coffee kind of aroma and flavor. We also age this beer for about 60 days in our Palo Santo wood vessels, wood tanks. So they're 300 barrel fermenters essentially, but they're made out of Palo Santo wood from Paraguay. So it's a very rare type of wood that's actually like super popular with hipsters nowadays. So like burn it like incense, and if you go to Boulder, it's like everywhere in all the like holistic shops and all that. But it's a really cool wood. It's actually I believe it's still the toughest or hardest wood, the bark on the outside of these things. So it's literally bulletproof. Like you can hold it in front of you and shoot a bullet at it, it won't go through. They went through something like, it was like 15 or 20 diamond-plated saw blades to get all the wood that we needed to build the tanks for the Palo Santo tanks, because it was just like shredding their blades. They were like, we've never freaking cut wood this dense. You hold a brick of it like this big at the brewery, it weighs probably 20 pounds. It's nuts, like how heavy this wood is, how dense it is. But it also imparts like really nice sort of like cinnamon or spice flavors into the beer, kind of gives it that little bit more of a rounded character than what you get out of a sort of normal big huge imperial stout or something.
This one is a neutral barrel aged sour beer, but 100% barrel aged and using fresh ginger. We're getting it from a company in Denver that fresh presses like 30 gallons of ginger juice for us, and we get it in the beer within 24 hours and then start moving and get it into a package. So it is the real deal.
Ooh, man.
As soon as I smell this, I instantly obviously want pad thai or sushi. Yeah. And that's just what happens. So we lobbed it up here. I mean, we have we also have an apricot sour and a raspberry sour and tons of other stuff. But to me, this, at least in my humble opinion, this opens up the most doors for really cool food pairings.
The most fun beer was from Dogfish Head. Don't tell anybody from Avery that. But it was a Pennsylvania Tuxedo, which is actually one of the beers that's going to be featured, which is their pale ale with fresh Pennsylvania spruce tips added. And it was a fun, light, very complex beer that you could just chug. And they bottled it a couple days before, so they express shipped it to Avery, which was awesome. So I think that was a really fun one.
So this beer, we started doing it last year, or no, 2 years ago. It's a collaboration we do with Woolrich out of Pennsylvania, the clothing company. We actually go into the woods in Pennsylvania and in Delaware and pick a bunch of fresh spruce tips every spring for this beer. It's a pale ale, I think, only by body really. I mean, it's 8.5% alcohol, so it's a pretty huge pale ale. But body-wise, it's really clean. It's got a nice crisp sort of finish. You definitely get a good amount of spruce in the beer and on the finish, because primarily that's what we use is like the bittering addition instead of hopping it for the most part. So it still has a nice sort of hoppy flavor, but obviously sort of dominated by that spruce character.
I think that with everything that's heavy here, we should end at like as light as possible.
I think that's a great idea.
Because as people go into it, their palates are going to go down, their stamina and their energy is going to go down. So we can kind of like wake them up a little bit, and then they'll feel like they can have another drink after that, even though they shouldn't. And first course to me is a spontaneous and the Pentux.
With what?
Like a tartare.
I thought that was game bird.
You could go game bird at this point.
There's a couple we were thinking.
There's a couple that could go game bird, but where game bird would roll now, if you move that to like there, you'd probably look at, so the worldwide stout and the tangerine quad might be like the big beef dish, so that might be like the fourth course.
Yeah.
I think that's where that would go.
Yeah, the Big Beers is, it's like I said earlier, it's one of those festivals that's sought after. People have been there, will be like, you don't know until you've been there. It's kind of got this cryptic nature about it. Until you go there, it's beautiful because it's in the winter, there's so much snow, there's a lot of people from out of town who are just there skiing. But you have all these owners from all these renowned breweries coming, Tommy Arthur from Lost Abbey, Sam Calagione is not going to be here this year. He normally comes, all these brewery owners just come up. It's a Brewers beer festival. It's a festival for brewers. And Laura Lodge and her brother Bill, they've done an incredible job of creating such an aura around this festival where, everybody wants to go. And it's a very prestigious, very limited event. And just seeing old friends where you just sit down and have a beer. You don't have to talk business. You just drink crazy beers at high altitude in the middle of the snow in a jacuzzi. It's awesome. And the Calibration Dinner is like the starting line.